What's up guys, and in today's video I'm going to be taking through how I am actively just building Killer Chaos OS while also building in public, what I've learned over the past few weeks, and also just new things that I'm actively going to be taking into the future as well. And yeah, basically like always with these videos, the mission is to show how builds raw and real, to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, what it is that I'm actively learning in terms of mental models, how we're scaling those mental models into the future, and actively just building around that so that we can build better product and also build better into the future. Also just to solve where it hurts, basically to come into businesses and organizations to be the chief problem solver and ultimately just build back-end infrastructure for them and just basically to solve their problems, and also just to call in visionaries, basically people aligned with the mission and understand what it is that we're actively solving for, and also just to build a network of cool people doing cool things at the same time. So like always, tactical breakdown of how I am building Killer Chaos OS, our internal operating system in public. And number one, like I've always done, this is broken down into 5 steps as always, which is number one, which is knowing your why. So starting with your why, and I think this is super important because people don't follow features, they follow conviction. Basically conviction in what it is that is your why are you doing this. And ultimately for us, I am actively doing this by saying, hey, I want to share my $100 million vision each and every single day. I know we're super far from that big picture vision of what we want to do in terms of reshaping industries, having $100 million worth of impact or more, and ultimately just inspiring people as well, millions of people, in what it is that we're actively building in Killer Chaos OS and what we will build into the future. And I think just having this why initially, saying, hey, backend systems that kill chaos for 500k planners and reshaping industries across Africa right now and into the future is going to be the goal that we have set for ourselves, and also for me as well, because I think in each and every company or an organization that you do build, you need to make sure that you start with a why that is bigger than the company or just bigger than yourself, because that why that is bigger than yourself ultimately does good by pushing the boundaries of not just saying, hey, I want to do XYZ for myself, but just doing greater good for the better community as well, and ultimately reshaping those industries by ultimately allowing innovation for that. I think will be a stepping stone that we'll ultimately just have to build. And imagine if we were the ones that were actively able to build that stepping stone. That would be so cool, and I'll be so pumped if we are. And I know that if we just continue to just push and hit the nail in the wall, we're ultimately going to be able to build that big picture vision where we're able to reshape industries, also just to inspire millions of people in what it is that we're building in terms of Killer Chaos OS, our internal operating system, and also just the products that we are going to build for our clients. And ultimately just saying, hey, what is the belief you would go broke for by defending, basically defending in order to go broke? Like if you went broke, what is the one belief that you have? And ultimately just understanding and asking this question to say, hey, no matter what, we don't care about whatever comes in terms of like the money and things like that. The number one focus right now is ultimately just to build cool things and things that are ultimately solving problems, and everything else will come as a byproduct. But the ultimate vision, the ultimate why is why we are actively striving for this each and every single day, to create this level of impact and also just to reshape industries and inspire millions of people, is ultimately what's going to allow us to just keep pushing through those days, because we know that, hey, no matter what we're doing, we know that there are other people that are seeing us, and through that it ultimately just allows us to keep pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible at the time, and just reaching a new level of understanding, and ultimately just saying, hey, we're starting with the why and we understand what the big picture vision is, but we're ultimately just striving to that each and every single day, and saying, hey, whatever comes in terms of monetary and stuff like that is a byproduct of what it is that we're actively solving for our clients and also building for the future. And saying, hey, we just want to solve problems, and we just want to be able to just keep on going at it and ultimately just create value. And then that ultimately stacks up with what it is that I'm actively doing today, which is stacking content daily, because I know content is going to be the springboard for what it is that I'm actively going to be doing into the future, like I always say in my videos, to build better mental models and also to see where I'm failing, where I need to improve, and ultimately just building that feedback loop, which is super important as always. And saying, hey, daily output creates compounding trust. Like I always say in my previous video, each and every single day when you're doing something, it ultimately compounds. For example, the analogy that I used is, what if you're actively building towards this big picture vision and you want to have this breakthrough, or this breakthrough that you want to have, but what if you thinking that, hey, this breakthrough needs to come out in a very big, it needs to come out very big, and ultimately for you saying, hey, what if this big momentum or this big picture vision that you want comes from daily consistent actions, and ultimately just taking that approach of saying, hey, what we want and what we want to build and shape for the future may not come in saying, hey, we're just going to have this big thing happen, it's all going to happen in one night, but ultimately it's going to be a result of those small compounding actions that we take on a day-to-day basis that are ultimately going to build that momentum that ultimately just takes us to the next level, that ultimately allows us to get to our why and why we started doing this, and saying, hey, all we need to do is making sure that, hey, no matter what small actions we're taking today, we're actively just building on those and ultimately just scaling those into the future, so that one day we know that, hey, it's going to be a result of the small actions that we took 3, 4, 6 years ago, and that is a result of why it is where we are in today. Hey, you don't start from zero and then just end up at 100 in one day. It takes time, it takes effort, and I just am super bullish on this to say, hey, I need to make sure that even with the content as well, I'm just hitting the nail in the wall each and every single day and saying, hey, 42 days straight videos, no skips. I have not taken a day off, and I think we're just gonna pump. We're almost at the halfway point, which is super exciting to say, hey, 50 days. I never thought I would be able to do it, but here we are, and I know that we're just actively just gonna build better, and I know that once we hit 50 and going on, we're just gonna take it up a notch and just ultimately just use the feedback that we've gotten from the first 50 videos and ultimately use those to better the next 50 and then beyond, maybe, but we'll see. And then saying, hey, raw, making sure it's raw but it's real, to show you, hey, that I'm actively learning from this, even just from speaking, that I'm learning on how it is that I need to be doing things, how I should be thinking about things through, and ultimately where I'm failing and where I need to improve as well, and ultimately saying, hey, that is the edge in terms of what it is that I'm doing, how we're building the systems that we're building for our clients, and actively just creating and solving solutions, and ultimately just making sure that, hey, each and every single day we're hitting the nail in the wall, and that we're actively just improving myself and also the team as well, and not just actively just building on the foundation that we're laying today in terms of mental models and also frameworks, so that we're actively just solving really hard problems and ultimately just keeping the big picture vision, our why, super strong in our minds, and also just aligning it each day and saying, hey, the key question to ask each and every single day, which I think is super valuable, is what's your minimum viable message? Can you say it daily to basically say, hey, what is the minimal viable message that you could say to yourself each and every single day that will ultimately just allow you to create that compounding effect in your mind, and ultimately just saying, hey, I need to make sure each and every single day I'm having this minimal viable message in order to build this big picture vision, and saying, yes, I can do that, and just building trust, I think, is super important. And I know these videos are ultimately gonna be a brick in that foundation, and saying, hey, I need to make sure that I'm leveraging feedback as well, which is super important. I think I speak about feedback a lot, especially with the chaos feedback cycle. I think this is super important, and if you guys haven't checked that out, you can check out my earlier videos when I speak about this Killer Chaos OS feedback cycle, which is super important in terms of how we're leveraging feedback. I think feedback and data points are super important in whatever you're building, even in your daily life, because they just keep you consistent and ultimately aligned with the big picture vision to say, hey, we're not perfect, and that's fine. We're going to make mistakes, but ultimately we're going to learn those mistakes, and no feedback is bad feedback, because it relieves that ego, takes that ego off, to say, hey, each and every single day we're just going to be pushing the needle forward, and we're going to be learning as much as we possibly can. But in order to do that, we need to just embrace feedback and just be feedback learning machines, and just taking that feedback and ultimately 10xing what it is that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and saying, hey, audience equals focus group plus compass. So saying how I'm doing it is a comment helped me to 1.5x my email reply rate. It wasn't theory, it was real feedback to ultimately say, hey, the messaging was off, so now we tweaked the messaging and then we increased our email reply rate simply through that. And saying, hey, what's the next signal you need from your tribe, basically the people within your audience, ultimately your focus group and your compass, which are your audience, and ultimately saying, hey, I need to make sure that I'm leveraging feedback as much as possible, because sometimes you never know where that feedback takes you. If someone says, hey, this XYZ button does not work, or this button could be doing XYZ within your product, that could ultimately unlock a new perspective or a new level of activation with what it is that you're actively building. And that activation could even just boost how many people stay on your product even longer, and ultimately even streamline the processes in terms of how your team is operating. And that feedback, ultimately that small nugget, ultimately unlocks that level of awareness that ultimately it just allows you to scale and build better and just to build cool things at the same time, which we are super bullish on, to basically say, hey, I need to make sure that we're actively just embracing what it is that we're embracing, and saying, hey, vulnerability is a shortcut to trust. So just making sure that, hey, we're also showing the wins and the losses. It's not just the wins, and saying, hey, flew slow days, we posted a client win from one of our clients, this is what we built out for them and this is what we got. And saying, hey, posted lows, flew slow days that I've had. Some of these days have been super slow in terms of recording. I just haven't been feeling well, and that's okay. But ultimately the response is more reaction, more connection. Like two days ago, I wasn't feeling super great while I'm recording this, and that's okay. That's fine. You don't always have good days and you don't always have bad days, but it's ultimately just that consistency of just hopping on in front of the camera that makes me so pumped to ultimately say, hey, I need to make sure that I'm just building stuff and I'm just actively just learning from this, and also just showing so that into the future that, I know that I have been proactively just taking the steps in order to build this big picture vision, and also just to make the childhood version of myself proud, because I think that is the most important thing as well. Just making sure that, hey, when I was younger, like, would I be watching the videos that I'm posting today? And ultimately, if the answer is yes, then it means I'm doing the right thing, and I would be super proud. I'll be super proud of myself. Just to go off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I'll be super proud. I started YouTube 7 years ago. Fun fact: I have some videos on my channel. You guys can check it out and just make fun of me, and we'll probably react to them sometime into the future. But younger version of myself will be super proud of myself, including the wins, the losses, all each and every single thing that we've done. And I will dive deep more into like a separate video of the losses and the wins, what it is and how that has shaped me into who I am today, and what led me to also building Killer Chaos OS, our internal operating system. But yeah, just small side tangent. But yeah, key question is, what can you share today that makes someone trust you tomorrow? So ultimately just asking, hey, we're all human, we make mistakes, we win, we lose, but ultimately you're never perfect. And I'm super bullish on that, to say, hey, each and every single day I'm showing who I am, and through showing who I am, that builds trust. I don't think too much about saying, hey, I need to make sure that I'm showing the wins, I'm showing all of these good things, because it's not always like that. Some days you get sick, some days you just don't have it in you and you're not that person, and that's okay. And ultimately just showing the real me and showing what it is that I'm actively doing, by not actively thinking about showing, hey, let me only show the good sides, let me only show the good things that are going on, and saying, no, sometimes things hit the fan, things are not always good, but that's okay, because you always learn from that. Through making mistakes, you always learn from that. And as well, like the big guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all those guys, they ultimately lost so many times in order to get the wins that they have today. And ultimately, what's me to say, if I also just want to strive to build cool things at the same time, what's in it to say that I won't share the same losses as well, and just documenting those and ultimately just building better into the future ultimately just allows me to scale what it is that I'm doing, not only for myself but the team as well, and making sure that I'm doing right by earning trust as well, because I think that's super important. Just being a trustworthy person and just doing right, but not actively proactively thinking about just showing the good stuff, because I don't do that. But yeah, and then saying, hey, every post is a brick, like I always say. Every post is a brick into the foundation for the future. So saying, hey, these posts aren't random, they're assets, they're digital assets for the future in terms of using mental models and how we're going to be scaling mental models. Also, just training the team as well. I normally just also encourage the team to watch these videos so that they understand the level of thinking and thought process that goes into what it is that we're building, so that when they just hop onto the team, they actively understand, including the internal source that we do give them, to make sure that, hey, like, they're watching every single thing and they know that we're cooking and the level of intensity that we're striving to build each and every single day, and they just fully understand that and saying, hey, I'm making sure that they're watching these videos and that they understand that each and every single video and consistency is ultimately just laying a brick into the foundation. If I can do 100 days if I can do 100 days straight, what's to say that, hey, if they're coming in, they need to know that intensity and also consistency is a requirement. It's not easy to do 100 days, but that's the reason why I'm in the game. That's the reason why I'm striving to just build cool things and just constantly just keep pushing the needle forward and saying, hey, each video is a timestamp, ultimately to say, hey, I'm documenting each and every single point in time in my life and a proof of work of what it is that I'm building, saying, hey, Killer Chaos OS, $100 million worth of impact in one day. Someday, and saying industry transformation from Africa, ultimately just saying, hey, we want to transform, reshape industries and just inspire millions of people, and saying, hey, what's the question to ask here, which is your content building a brand or burning time? Which I think it is building a brand, long-term assets, and I'm super pumped to be making these videos because you just never know what it is that's gonna happen into the future. But I know that these videos are ultimately just gonna help us connect with really cool people and top talent as well, and ultimately just allow us to just build better mental models and feedback loops as well, which are gonna be super crucial to what it is that we're going to be doing and the level of problems that we're going to be solving into the future. And I'm super pumped, super excited, and I'm super excited to just continue building. And I think into the future, like I said, these videos are going to be the assets that ultimately just allow us to just 10x what it is that we're doing in terms of output, also just solving problems. And I am super excited. I know it's a long journey, we're still in the trenches, I know, but I know that into the future, with time, we're ultimately just going to be able to scale what it is that we're doing. And I'm super pumped. Through the good, through the bad, I'm going to be showing you guys everything. And then from day 50 and beyond, we're going to be taking it up a notch. And I'm just super glad each and every single day I'm learning from these videos, getting a lot of knowledge and a lot of value from just even making these videos and just holding myself accountable to make these videos each and every single day, which is making me a even better operator, and I'm super proud. There's nothing that could take that away from me, and I'm super proud to be able to translate this to the team as well, and ultimately just allowing us to build better and to also just scale better into the future, and just holding myself accountable to just constantly just pushing the needle forward and hitting the needle into the wall, and just constantly just building cool stuff that makes me excited each and every single day. That's what it's all about. I think that's what it's all about. But yeah, enough rambling about me. Enough rambling from me, and I will see you guys. If you guys want to connect with me, make sure to check me out on X, LinkedIn. Links are in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video.